What's up, BookTube? Sandy Ghostin back here with my March 2021 reading wrap-up. And it wasn't necessarily the most prolific month of reading that I've ever had, but it was a month of reading that I did have. And I did survive it, though not necessarily at the level I usually read at, but still nonetheless productive. And in this case, I'm going to look at it more as a perhaps quality over quantity in terms of book that I read this month. I'll talk about that next. Okay, so for the month of March, I actually read 4 books. Usually I typically like to be at about 6 books read for a particular month, but in this case, it only ended up being 4, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. So first up, I finished a Michigan-based book, and that is The Pink Pony: Murder on Mackinac Island. I've talked about that numerous times. I read it, I enjoyed it. I think there are more books by this author that highlight good stories, cool stories that are going on in the state of Michigan and some recognizable places for a lot of us. So I'm excited about potentially exploring more books by this author just to see if there's anything else that kind of hits the mark the way that this one did, because this one they were traveling all over the state of Michigan, and it was kind of interesting for me, but it was also a lot of courtroom stuff, and I'm not always a big courtroom story fan, but in this case it wasn't all that bad, and I actually did enjoy it. It was an engaging story, and I do like to explore authors that are maybe a little bit off the beaten path, just to see. A lot of times you'd be surprised, you'll find some hidden gems, authors that aren't necessarily getting a lot of publicity but are producing good works, interesting works, especially if it's works within genres that you like to read. I would definitely encourage other readers, booktubers, to check out authors that, maybe aren't necessarily in the mainstream, but if you dig deep enough in Amazon or whatever other website or bookstore that you choose to visit or use, you'll sometimes find those hidden gems, and you'll be glad that you did. Next up, I read one of my Book of the Month selections, and that was Too Good to Be True by Carola Lovering. And when I saw this book in Book of the Month, it was one that just jumped out at me and really grabbed me right off the bat. And it was kind of interesting because it was one of those stories where you've got like a kind of a triangle going on, and you've got this mystery that's going on as well, and what you start to explore different aspects of what is love. You have a relationship, for example, with a large age gap, and that creates a certain dynamic as well. And so this book had a little bit of everything, and I'll just read the first paragraph of the book description just to give you an idea of what this is all about. Sky Starling is overjoyed when her boyfriend, Burke Michaels, proposes after a whirlwind courtship. Though Sky seems to have the world at her fingertips, she's smart, beautiful, and from a well-off family. She's also battled crippling OCD ever since her mother's death when she was 11, and her romantic relationships have suffered as a result. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and read the second paragraph here because it's probably necessary. But now Burke, handsome, older, and more emotionally mature than any man she's ever met before, says he wants her forever, except Burke isn't who he claims to be, and interspersed letters to his therapist reveal the truth. He's happily married and using Sky for his own deceptive ends. So you got a lot of going on here, a lot of mystery going on, and it takes an interesting approach to telling the story through some letters that are spread out throughout the story to just kind of give you the inner view of what one of the characters is thinking. And so you kind of go into the mind of one of the characters, and it really makes the story interesting. It adds a layer of depth that I wasn't quite expecting, but I was definitely pleased to see it. So this was a good one. I really enjoyed it. It was my Book of the Month selection, I think probably for March, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. But it was a really good choice. I'm glad I picked it up. I jumped right into it and read it, and I'm glad I did that as well. Next up is another Book of the Month selection that I was happy to pick up. So I picked up Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam, and I picked this up off of Book of the Month. But then I got a subscription to Scribd, and Scribd had it as an audiobook. And so when I saw it on Scribd as an audiobook, and I remembered that I had the hardcover, I decided to mix the two to get a little bit of the audiobook and a little bit of the hardcover book. And some of the things that I didn't maybe pick up quite as well in the audiobook, I went back and made sure I reread in the physical copy of the book. And so this is an interesting book. It's about a family that's renting a property, and they're trying to get away from things. And then this couple shows up, this older couple shows up, and they say they're the owners of the house, and they're back because there's this big power outage in New York. And so these two families are blended together, and neither of them knows if the other is legit or what's going on. And so there's this tension that's really kind of just engrossing, really, from start to finish in this book. And I really enjoyed just getting into it and feeling that tension. There's some racial dynamics, there's some class dynamics, there's just a mystery dynamic, and again, that build of tension throughout the story was really kind of addicting. And I was glad that I picked it up because it was really a fun read, and it's a relatively quick read too, just a little over 200 words, so it went really fast. And again, I'm glad I read it. Really interesting story, a little creepy at times, a little uncomfortable at times, but definitely a good read. And finally for the month, again, a little bit of a slow reading month for me, but not necessarily a bad reading month in the sense that I did get some good books, and I am glad that I picked up finally Truly Devious. I saw Truly Devious, and again, like I was talking about with Leave the World Behind, I saw Truly Devious was on Scribd as well, and so I did the same thing. I kind of read it a little bit here, the physical copy, and then I also did the audiobook as well. And so I was glad I got a chance to get into it, and I had some I was intrigued by it. You know, it's got the whole boarding school thing, and I know a lot of you guys get on me about that and think that that's kind of funny. But I liked reading that one. Then you have a mystery. You have dueling timelines from way back in like the 1930s and then current times, and the mystery that's mysteries really that have to be solved. And so you have an intriguing character, and it was just really a good read. I was glad I read it. I bought all three books in the series, the original trilogy, all three books. And so I was glad to jump into this one because I figured, man, you know what? I've invested in three books. I should probably at least give the first one a try and see if I like it. I did, in fact, like Truly Devious, and I'm excited to continue with this series. And then there's another book in the Truly Devious series, though it takes a little bit of a different turn from the original trilogy. But I'm still excited about reading that next book coming up by Maureen Johnson, the author of Truly Devious. So should be truly interesting. So there you have it, my March wrap-up, and it was, again, quality over quantity. It ended up being a good month of reading for me. I was in a little bit of a reading slump at the beginning, and I think the audiobooks helped get me out of that reading slump and got me a little bit more inspired to do it. I have been doing a little bit more writing in the month of March because I'm trying to finish up a story that I am authoring right now. It's a horror story, and I'm about 74,000 words into it. It's going to take me about 80 to 85,000 words to finish. So that's had a little bit more of my attention in the month of March. So we'll see how that goes. But all in all, pretty solid month of reading. I had some good reads that I'm really excited about. I hope you had a good month of reading as well. And I look forward to sharing more of what I'm reading, what I've read, and what I'm going to read in the near future right here on this channel. So if you would, please consider hitting the like button for the video, hit the subscribe button if you have not already, and if you have ideas for other videos, you have books that you would like to select for me to read, I am certainly open to that. I love getting ideas from other people. Some things that maybe push me a little bit out of my reading comfort zone are certainly welcome right here on this channel. And with that, I'll see you with the next video.